All right, kids. All right, here's what's going on. Today it is Monday for you guys. It's Sunday for me. I have your answers here, and I'm going to start reading them here in just a second. Stay tuned. Welcome back, Cotter. Here's where we go. What am I drinking today? I'm drinking Cavita Citrus Kombucha. I know, Andy Turlow loves this stuff. It's his favorite. What am I doing? Well, I'm going through my electrical stuff right here. Diagrams and all that stuff. And stuff showed up and things are here and I'm just getting ready. This week's going to be, my goal this week, don't hold me to it, is I want this car completely wired and ready to start. I'll probably crank it, but I won't fire it because the blower drive's not here yet, so until that's on, I'm not doing it. But here goes your questions. Here goes your answers. The question was, well, it's two-part. What does MOPAR stand for? Let's go through that. So MOPAR means motor parts. And it was conflicting here, late 20s, early 30s, whatever. Some of the answers were in the 30s, and it was Chrysler, Jeep, not Jeep. Jeep was not till 91. Chrysler didn't buy them. Chrysler didn't ruin Jeep until 1991. That was when they took it over, 90 or 91, and then Jeep was ruined. So it's my opinion anyway. Chrysler, Dodge, Plymouth, and I want to say something else, but I don't know what it was. Anyway, that's where the Pentastar maybe that was. Anyway, not important. Not saying you Dodge guys aren't important, but not important. Another important. Okay, so here we go. Left for Dead Garage. HG says, I don't speak the Mopar, but the lava lamp isn't on. You're right. It wasn't on in that video. It is now. Thank you for that one. Okay, so here we go. Andy's Doghouse says, cars. Hey, Jaws, I missed the one. Here in Canada up until 62, cars weren't equipped with seatbelts during that time. Canada SCO supplied members with seatbelts as part of its traffic safety initiatives. Interesting. And urged car manufacturers saw them by the 70s. Cars were built with seatbelts, and 76 became mandatory in Ontario. Interesting. Has nothing to do, Andy, with that was last week, but I got you. Okay. Credit. Hold on. Next one. Big Block Kings. Gorney said, hey, Kevins, I knew a big boy that was trying to get into an army base and couldn't buckle up with a seatbelt, and they tied him up with a rope, and the guard laughed so hard he let him in. That's a response to Kevin's with apostrophe, Kevin with the apostrophe S, showing possession. Kevin's possession. Possessed Kevin said that he had an issue with seatbelts back then, and he got bothered by trying to get into the army base so many times. They kept bothering about him having seatbelts in his old vehicle, and he finally just put them in. So that was Gorney's response. Again, Gorney, nothing having to do with Mopars. The question was about Mopars, the first part. Then we'll get to the second part. Empty Pockets. James says, good quiz questions. I have to say, I've been told in the past what Mopar stands for, but he forgot he's too old. As far as the narrowed we're in, I think Dart, but more not exact year. I suck at students, but he's better than a professor. That is true, James, you are. That's the second part. We'll get to it. Oh, here's the one I was looking for. Iron Horse Garage. As you know, these boys are dyed-in-the-wool Mopar fanatics from Idaho. I got you. I understand. It's a strange, crazy group of people that are really into Mopar stuff. I happen to like most everything that's not true. I like all the muscle cars and some of the like a 30s Chrysler Royale or something like that. Some of the early Dodge stuff is pretty cool. Most of the Mopars up until about When they do the rubber bumpers in the Challenger, 72. I think 74 was the last year of the actual Challenger. It looked like a Challenger. So I'll give them a pass there. But after 1972, nobody made anything very cool. I mean, Pontiac made a Super Duty Trans Am. That was pretty cool. And Firebirds and, that 74 Challenger, which was super weak. But, other than that, nobody made anything cool. And a Charger after 1970, or the Super Bs or anything after that, after 1970. I know the hoods on like a 71 or 2 Super B is like super rare or whatever, but I don't care. They're all ugly. General Motors, Ford, everything. After 1972, it doesn't exist in my world. So there you go. The early stuff, factory drag car stuff, oh, I love it. So that leads us into, we'll get into the second part of the question, but everybody was right. Motor parts. Mopar stands for motor parts. It was basically a brand unification for service items and fluids for Dodge, Chrysler, Plymouth, DeSoto, Fargo, and now Jeep. I believe it was first put in place in the 30s, if I understand. Oh, okay. So the reason I'm reading this one that these guys put together is because they wrote me a book, which is fine, but it's because these guys are nuts. And we had a conversation afterwards, and they followed along. So a little backstory. When I was growing up, car magazines was what I devoured. I didn't read any books going to, and stuff in school. Like all the books we had to read in school, I did like this. I read the first chapter, or the first couple pages. I read the preface and like the summary on the back of the book, and I read like the last paragraph in the book. And I wrote book reports on that because I could summarize what the book was going to be like. And if I passed, I passed. Big deal. I didn't care. What I really read was car magazines, manuals, yearbooks, hot rod yearbooks, stuff like that. I devoured any hot rod magazine, any muscle car magazine, any custom car magazine, cartoons. I still have a subscription to cartoons, but that kind of stuff I absolutely, totally devoured. And it looks like, after talking to these guys here, that they did the same thing. In fact, I think they got their magazines from their uncles, like Muscle Car Performance or Mopar Performance or something. Muscle Car Review. I don't remember what it was, but it was something. So here, we'll get into the second part. The second part of the question I asked was, and I was talking about Mopar vehicles specifically, which ones had the narrowed rear ends? And he nailed it, which has to do with FX cars, factory experimental drag cars for Chrysler. So he said, if I understand your next question correctly, the first heavily modified factory race cars were the FX cars or altered wheelbase cars. True, all the altered wheelbase cars had narrow rear ends. Not all of the cars that had narrow rear ends were altered wheelbase. But they were 62 to 65 B bodies, I think. In 66, the Charger was coming out, and some of the other stuff like the bigger Cornet or whatever, those weren't narrowed. But they all were narrowed, and the reasoning was big tires. They knew all those factory cars or sponsored cars, the Ram Chargers or whatever with the 426, some of the stuff, not necessarily the Hemi, but like the Max Wedge and the big Cross Ram, those were going to be raced. A lot of them were. And they were lightened. A lot of them were acid dipped, and a lot of them had aluminum front ends, which ironically, Dodge is not the only, or Mopar's not the only one that did the aluminum front ends or aluminum parts. Ford and Chevrolet, GM both did. They all had factory experimental cars, or cars you could buy that were inter-tray legal, but they were factory street cars. Not practical on the street, but they were definitely street cars. I don't think there was ever any altered wheelbase cars that actually drove on the street legally. I don't know. Anyway, next question. Here we are. So they had narrower ends, and the axles were pushed forward, both front and rear. That's true. The bodies had to be modified to accommodate the tires, and their cars were also acid dipped to thin out the metal for weight. True. Weight reduction. Some also had aluminum front ends and doors. True. I forgot about the doors. You're right. GM did bumpers and bumper brackets, and I don't know that the front fenders were aluminum on the 427 Z16 cars, or Z11 cars, which was a 427 409 block, but a 427 cubic inch, all aluminum, but looked like a 409, and those are factory. In fact, I think I told you about the one that was here in Hawaii. The guy didn't even know what it was. He took the motor out because he didn't want to drive it because it ate too much gas. Some also had aluminum fenders. I believe it was 6 cars that were built this way from the factory starting in '65. That's true. The altered wheelbase cars were in '65. The earlier ones, some of the Ram Charger stuff, but it was all B-bodies. They had narrow ends too. They used Dodge and Plymouth B-body cars. That's exactly true. Good answer. And I told him, shh. So I was impressed. Totally impressed. I didn't think... I mean, it would have to take a special kind of weirdo to know, oh look, my lava lamp's starting to work. It would take a special weirdo to like devour and know Dodge stuff enough to be able to dig that deep and know what was there. And it didn't even faze these guys because he devoured the magazines just like I did, which I'm impressed. That's pretty sweet. Not saying those of you guys that didn't devour that stuff, are not. I'm saying he's nuts, and I can relate. Next question. Next answer. Harnet's Garage. Well, somehow I missed the seatbelt question. Whoops. No, but I'm not a Dodge guy, but his boss is. And he said motor parts, I believe, is what Mopar means. As far as the factory drag guards and narrowed ends, you're going to have to get the answer somewhere else. Chris said, damn, I was wrong. I thought it was 64. He's talking about the seatbelts. 64 they were introduced, buddy. In GM, they were introduced in cars. They weren't mandatory until 68. I don't think they made production 68. Brian Kinnear says, great answers. I remember wearing seatbelts in 72. You had to wear them for your driver's road test, but they weren't mandatory. Anyhow, the girls all say hi and thanks for the shout out. You're welcome, girls. You guys are wonderful. Awesome. Aloha, be safe and stay well. Watch for the answers in a later comment below. He did reply later. Gorney says he has no idea about Big Block, about these, but he loves Mopars. Good idea. Kevin L. From Mopars, from the 2 words motor and parts. Yep, because they were super creative. That's a tough one. Like Fomoco. GM didn't do anything dumb like that, did they? They probably did. The word was first used in the 20s, but came in 1920, but became its own brand in 1935 for Chrysler. I didn't know that. I'm not sure which car was used, but the first narrowed rim was put into production in 1957. You are correct, sir. And he also called the vehicle. It was a Ford 9-inch narrowed, first one in 1957 in the Ford in the Galaxy or Fairlane? One of them. It was by, that's actually true. It was because they could, it was actually, I think they said the first year of the 9-inch. It wasn't intended for racing or anything, but they actually narrowed it. I think it came out of the truck. No? I don't remember the detail behind it, but it was actually the first narrowed rim, factory narrowed rim was in 1957 in the Ford. And then was later replaced by an 8.8. That's like, we'll get into that one. I'm still trying to find out which car it was used in. It was in the Ford. This one's a good quiz question, so I might have 2 answers. Enjoying the quiz questions a lot and researching these things. That's what it's all about. I want you guys to get some education here. Remember, lava lamp's prerequisite for passing this course. Part 2 was used in most Ford passenger cars and trucks. GM did use them too, but didn't want to admit it. When our production A6. 8.8? You're going to have to expand on that, buddy, because I don't know what you're talking about, Kevin L. Expand on your answer. Okay, good job, kids. Well done. I'm impressed with all of you and your answers. I thought I would stump you Dodge guys, so I have to think of something different. The history of it always gets me. I love the history. So this next question, I'm going to come up with this one on the fly. It won't be Mopar related this time. I got to think of a better one. What was the first vehicle to have power windows? And if you research this properly, you will be surprised to find out. Well, let me ask you this. The first vehicle to have power windows, and were they electric? You'll be surprised. That's a simple one. Okay, that's one question for this week. The second question for this one, this is a pop quiz. Second one is, this is a Mopar question. Why did Dodge or Mopar, whoever they are, put left-handed threads on their vehicles? And which side of the car are the left-handed threads? And are they the only U.S. manufacturer to do that? And if not, or if so, I need to know the answer, what other vehicle had it? What other manufacturer and what vehicle was it? I do know this. I worked in a tire shop, and I snapped off a number of lug nuts to know why. So let's see. Yeah, that's your questions. And have a happy Monday. Or hope you guys have a good week. I will see you on Wednesday. And hopefully this will be much, much closer. And this box will be much, much emptier. Lava lamp, 4-speed, aloha.